All right, let's just get right into it. When you think about ancient India, your mind probably jumps to lives ruled by duty, tradition, and, very strict rules, especially when it comes to love and romance. But what if I told you that story is missing some seriously juicy details? I mean, really, take a second. Do you picture your great-great-great-great-grandparents' dating life as some simple, straightforward affair? Well, you might want to think again. Because, believe it or not, ancient Indians were dealing with a lot of the same stuff we are today. We're talking about flings in taverns, going on dates in the park, and yes, they even had to worry about getting stuck in the friend zone. People had live-in partners and had to figure out how to navigate messy, complicated breakups. It all sounds surprisingly familiar, right? So think of this as your own personal trip in a time machine. We're going to be your historical dating coach. We'll use ancient texts like the Kamasutra to give you a hands-on guide to flirting like they did way back when. Okay, so first things first, if you wanted to find a match, where did you even go? Let's take a look at the ancient dating scene. So this whole idea that unmarried men and women were kept totally separate, it's just not true. It was actually common to have mixed gender friend groups, so people could just hang out without a ton of pressure. And beyond that, you had schools, you had these beautiful public parks and gardens, temples, bustling town squares, and even taverns and festivals. Seriously, the opportunities were everywhere. And this wasn't some happy accident. The Kama Sutra itself actually tells men to go out and be seen in these public places. The whole point was to look sharp, carry yourself well, and just pique a woman's curiosity from across the way. The marketplace, it turns out, was for mingling just as much as it was for merchants. And this is where it gets really relatable. The Kama Sutra, I kid you not, actually warns men about getting stuck in the friend zone. It advises them to make their romantic intentions clear pretty early on. I guess All right, so you're out and about and you've found someone who catches your eye. What's the next move? Let's dive into Seduction 101 and the ancient art of attraction. So what becomes really clear is that attraction was about the whole package. Yeah, sure, physical appeal was important. Good hygiene, nice clothes, some tasteful jewelry, but that was just the start. It had to be balanced with real emotional connection through sincere compliments, an intellectual spark through things like poetry or music, and of course, a good laugh. Having a quick wit was seen as absolutely essential for building that intimacy. Now, to attract a woman specifically, men were told to offer thoughtful little gifts like flowers or ornaments. But they also got really creative, like writing secret love notes on leaves with a kind of invisible ink that would only show up with heat. And for a really intimate gesture, lovers might exchange batel leaves with their own bite marks on them. But more than anything else, patience and respect were absolutely critical. And this quote, it just nails it. The idea of consent was so important. These ancient texts are full of warnings to men not to be too pushy, really stressing that a real connection has to grow naturally and willingly. And hey, this was not a one-way street. Men apparently found it absolutely irresistible when a woman took the lead. A woman with confidence, who could lead the conversation with her charm and her wit, well, that was seen as incredibly attractive. Okay, let's do a little rapid fire round of ancient do's and don'ts. First up, a big don't. Being a bore. This line here is basically the ancient Indian way of saying you're too nerdy and you have no idea how to have a good time. So what's the do that goes with that? Be playful. A little light teasing or pretending to misunderstand something just to be funny. That was seen as a fantastic way to build a fun, flirtatious vibe.
Here's another don'ts. Being too aggressive. The advice is crystal clear. Be a gentle breeze, not a storm. You have to approach with care, not with force.
And the do that follows from that, create intimacy with subtlety. This person is basically saying they found a clever excuse to get a little closer, in a way that felt romantic and natural, not demanding. It's all about the finesse. So let's see how all this flirting and attraction builds into something, well, a bit more serious. Now we're talking about dating, sex, and yep, even breaking up. A really important concept here is something called kalavu, which basically means clandestine love. This was a recognized idea that people had premarital relationships, both emotionally and physically. And what's so incredibly progressive is that these texts always emphasize the woman's agency and her full consent in all of it.
In fact, this whole idea was so accepted that many couples had what was essentially a premarital trial period. They were actually encouraged to spend time together. Maybe habits and their personalities were actually a good match for the long haul. And what happened if they weren't a good match? Well, they broke up. And the reasons why sound like they were pulled from a modern advice column. One person let themselves go, the romance just got boring, someone wasn't listening to their partner's feelings, or that classic, being way too clingy or way too distant.
Even the breakup advice could have been written today. The main guidance was to do it without drama. Slowly pull back, maybe even help your ex meet someone new, and most importantly, end things gently without being cruel. It was all about respecting the connection you once had. So, after going through all of this, the dating scene, the flirting, the messy breakups, what's the big takeaway here? Why does any of this ancient history really matter to us today? And this really is the heart of it. Our technology has changed, our clothes have changed, our societies have changed, but the fundamental things we humans want, they haven't. The search for love, that need for connection, that desire to be truly understood by another person, that's a story that is as old as time. Which leaves us with one final question to chew on. If the things we're looking for in a partner, wit, kindness, respect, a spark, are the same things they were looking for thousands of years ago, are the rules we follow to find that love really all that new? Something to think about.